induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Today, we're pleased and honored to have author and researcher Stefan Verstappen speaking about the need for millennial men and women to return to a tradition of independence, self-reliance, courage, strength, and qualities the state has done everything in its power to destroy. His latest book, The Way of the Warrior, is a training manual to teach the skills needed to become a modern-day warrior. Fight the system or become one of the living dead. At least, that is the way he personally sees it. Listen in and call in with your questions or comments. 646-652-4620. Stefan, welcome to Liberty Talk Radio.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Joe. It's an honor.
Well, it's an honor to have you on. Well, you know what's interesting? I can't tell you how many dozens of times I have talked about my conundrum with zombies. Because for years, I never watched the zombie movie all the way through. When I channel surf, I'll stop for about 2 minutes and, they're dragging their right foot and the blood's coming out of the mouth and all that stuff. And I keep on thinking, I don't understand the zombie. They're not alive. They're not dead. They're not alive. And then one day it hit me. It's just like Avatar, just like The Matrix, just like Star Wars. It's all a metaphor. And what zombies are the American public. And it hit me, this was a couple of years ago, and I talk about this incessantly, and people will think I'm nuts, We're zombies. No one thinks anymore. And it's my favorite subject, and every time I bring it up, I get more anger than I get responses. What say you?
I think you're absolutely right. It's a plan to zombify us, and it's a plan that's been in effect for 100 years. And the plan starts with public education, and then it continues through with popular media, and then it goes on to vaccinations and fluoride in the water and GMO in the foods and Wi-Fi radiation going through people's brains, and then the latest weapon in their arsenal of turning Americans into zombies is the, goddamn cell phones. I mean, I can't believe this phenomenon where everybody is staring at a phone all day, all night, and that phone is literally sucking the brains out of them. They can't think for themselves. They're not even aware of where they are. And this is part of a three-pronged attack to destroy Americans, our culture, our history, and our intelligence, and our ability to act like human beings. Because that's what totalitarian systems always try to do, is turn their populations into weak-minded simpletons because it makes it easier to rule them.
Even when if I go to a business meeting, and these people are in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s, believe it or not. I mean, I'm the young one. I'm only 74 years old, so I'm not old at all. But if I say something that's out of the mainstream, not outlandish, but something that is not being advocated or promoted on mainstream television, everyone looks at me like I've lost my mind. And I wind up defending myself on some innocuous subject that means nothing, which they heard the opposite of which on television. And I wind up defending everything that I have to say. And I've come to the point where if I don't have to, I say nothing because I'm tired of it. And I said, how come this is infected, basically, even the older generation.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say for 74, you look marvelous.
Oh, thank you very much. Would you call Pamela Anderson and tell her that?
I'm texting her as we speak.
No, and don't tell my wife that I asked you to do that, by the way.
Oh. She probably doesn't mind anyways.
She says, take them, please.
For a while, right? No, absolutely. I'm the same way. I'm just flabbergasted. It's been 17 or 16 years since 9/11, which is the single event that really, I was awake before that point, right? I knew Kennedy assassination was not, done by Lee Harvey Oswald. I knew that was an inside job. I knew the Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag. But I was never like radical conspiracy theorist. I just thought, well, there's some sneaky things going on. 9/11 really broke it open for me because that was the biggest false flag, in your face massacre and destruction on an unparalleled scale ever seen in the history of the United States. This is like huge. And I knew it was an inside job the day it happened. I know I'm going to sound like a big, like I know it all or something. I'm so smart. No, because I know those buildings cannot collapse into their own footprint. I know that much. It's just basic engineering and common sense almost. So as soon as I realized those buildings cannot collapse into their own footprint, how could it have come down? Well, then the obvious answer is demolition. Well, who could have wired that up? Well, whoever is behind it owns the buildings, owns the security companies, and then they had the government in on it to cover it up afterwards. So this is a litmus test. 9/11 is a litmus test. If you think that it was, 19 hijackers and planes that brought down 3 buildings, then I don't know what to say anymore. So for 16 years, I thought, any day now, they're going to, press charges on the Bush regime and everybody involved and Larry Silverstein, and they're all going to be rounded up and charged with war crimes. And every year goes by, and I don't see that happening. As a matter of fact, some people are awake, but wow, most people still don't get any of it. They don't get any of it. They've been so brainwashed into this liberal, Marxist socialist programming that they were taught in school and on TV and things. They don't get it. So even if you say, even the simplest thing that's slightly, outside of what the mainstream media wants you to think, then you get this violent reaction from these people. They don't want to talk to you. Well, can I present some facts to you? Can I talk to you and we'll just discuss this? I'm not, criticizing you. I'm not saying you're an idiot or anything like that. I'm not saying I'm right, you're wrong, but can I provide you with some information that, some questions that you could ask yourself and come to your own conclusions? Because, once you ask some of these questions and you try and figure out what the answer is, you'll eventually come to the truth, because the truth is immutable,
Right.
So here's the thing, and I wrote this in my the other book, Art of Urban Survival, how to tell when people are lying. And here's how to tell when people are lying. People that are innocent want you to know as much as possible, right? So if you accuse me of, rape and murder, I want you to know where I was and what my personalities and interview all my friends and family and find out what I do and check my Facebook account, whatever you need to do, because I know I am innocent, and the more information you know about me, the more likely you will arrive at the truth, which is that I am innocent. Now, we have the opposite case with this 9/11 stuff, nobody wants to discuss it at all, So if you accuse me of rape and murder and I say, well, I don't want to discuss it, what are you going to think? You're going to think, wait a minute, this guy's got something to hide. And this is what it's like trying to discuss anything reasonable or, God forbid, libertarian or slightly to the right of Mao Zedong. You get this wall. They don't want to discuss it. They don't want to hear it. You don't have a point. Whatever you say is automatically just a big lie, and you're trying to pull one over on them. And so no, you can't discuss it with these people, Joe. You know that.
Yeah, it's interesting if the incident of 9/11 was an actual crime scene, they would have taken depositions from people. All of that would have been made public, but everything became very secretive. Anyone involved in it, was was given $1 million. They had to sign a paper to never talk about it. All this, everyone was paid off. Now, in a court of law, if you start paying off all the witnesses, you'd all be in jail. Everyone who did this should have been in jail, should have been locked up for obstruction of justice. But the government obstructed absolutely everything. I had a gentleman on my show a couple of weeks ago who defended many things. 9/11 was one that came up. Not that the program was about 9/11, but he wanted to bring it up. And I said, well, what happened to building number 7? And that stopped him, like he didn't know building number 7 existed. I said, there was a fire in one suite. It's a steel frame building, and it implodes as if it was a planned demolition. I said, never in the history of mankind has a steel frame building that had a fire in one suite resulted in the internal implosion of a building. I mean, first of all, physically it's impossible. It's just not possible. And he had no answer for it. Instead of saying, well, geez, I never thought of that. Let me look into it. He wanted to dismiss it altogether. It's like saying, please do not confuse me with the facts. And I find it so, now I don't know what happened exactly at 9/11, but I used to be the sidewalk superintendent because I worked downtown when they were building it. And I was a sidewalk superintendent for the World Trade Center back in the old days, when I worked down there. And to me, it's just so inconceivable that such a tall tower could come straight down and not even injure the buildings across the street from it. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me. And I know nothing about. I couldn't put two 2x4s together, so don't consider me a demolition expert. I know nothing about construction. It just does. None of it made any sense.
Yeah, no, and I mean that was the key point. When I watched it live on TV, the first one went down, and then my wife woke me up. I was in California at the time. She says, "Oh, you got to see this," and we watched the second one live come down, and I went, "No, that doesn't happen that way." I mean, it's common sense. I don't know, common sense. There was a time when people were educated with the ability to critically think about things, and they would know, they could look at something and go, geez, that is not right. Antlers on a rabbit. No, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
The jackalope kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now they present the jackalope, everybody goes, oh, yeah, well, there's rabbits that have antlers. I mean, it's part of the zombification that you mentioned earlier. They are such zombies. There is nothing going on in the frontal cortex there, Joe. The frontal cortex, examines evidence, compares it to previous experience, compares it to learning and what you know about the laws of nature. But with these people, there's nothing there. I don't even talk to them. It's like, talking to a toaster. That's what they are. They're mindless automatons, Joe. I don't know how else to say it. I know it sounds terrible to say those things, but I have tried. There is no response there. There's no critical thinking.
Yeah. Tell us something about your book, because one of my criticisms that I have, and I have this very often, is with our school system. And I have occasion, because in the afternoon, sometimes I have a couple hours off. My wife and I help out with the Animal Rescue Foundation, and we always have dogs in the house. We have 3 dogs of our own, and we'll take them to the dog park. And at the dog park, late in the afternoon, you'll find many of the females there, I'd say males and females, but mostly females, are school teachers, because they get out at 3 o'clock or whatever, and they bring their dogs there. And I often have conversations with them, when you get to meet people, you say, hi, what do you do, and many of them are teachers. And then I start talking to them about the school system. They get so angry, and I'm not accusing them, I'm asking them just questions. And they get angry. They don't want to talk about it. And their answer is always the same. But I'm a good teacher. As if I accused them of it. I said, why did you bring that up? Well, you're talking about the school system. I want you to know I'm a good teacher. I said, I don't question that at all. I said, I have a question about the school system. They know nothing about the system, and they take everything personally, and all they know to say is what they're told to say, and they memorize it. And they say the same thing over and over again. And usually, and I'm not saying an argumentative conversation, I just ask them questions. And you know how they usually complete the conversation? They say, but I'm a good teacher. And they get up and walk away. And I go, what was that all about? And it's as if I'm a lunatic, and I'm saying something horrible to these people. And what bothers me, the reason why I pick on teachers is because teachers are the ones that are teaching, that are in the class, directing our young children, and they're becoming zombified by the teachers. And the teachers don't even know it.
Yeah. The fact that they get angry makes me suspect that maybe deep down inside there is some tiny spark of awareness, and they know what they're doing. They know they're wrong. They know they're stuck in this system that is, destroying children's minds. That's what education is designed to do. Let's, do aside with, because we've been raised on all this, propaganda about, oh, well, someday he's going to go get an education. And if only we can educate the poor, and if only we can educate the third world. And it's like education is some panacea for all the world's ills, and it's lauded as such a great pursuit. But when they talk about education, they're talking about government indoctrination and programming. They're not talking about real education. And I think with these teachers, somewhere deep down inside, there's some slight spark of awareness where they know what they're doing, and that's why they're angry at you, because they don't want you to pinch, to poke them. People get abusive and violent when you poke them, okay? When you make them uncomfortable. Why would you be uncomfortable by answering some questions or even contemplating a question? What? You can ask me anything, Joe. Am I going to get uncomfortable? Do I care? Have I dated Pamela Anderson? No, ask me whatever you want, I'm not going to, how dare you ask me about Pamela Anderson, Joe, you bastard, you. I don't even want to,
Well, she's my girl. I want you to know that.
So there's something in them. They know it, and so I'm giving them the benefit of that doubt, because if they didn't get angry, if they didn't have some spark of awareness, that would mean that they are spiritually dead. They're soulless creatures at that point. And, I kind of believe that, Joe, that we are all born with a spark, the seed of a soul, and you need, the purpose of life is to feed that soul through beauty and art and living a good life and and thinking and all the good things, and then you feed it through that type of activity, and then you may when you get older and get to be around our age have a brain and a soul and a sense of feeling for the world. What happens is the education system, I believe, snuffs that little flame out. And so those souls never get a chance to develop. And by the time they get through 12 years of public education, and then another 4 years of higher learning, meaning, in more intense indoctrination, they don't have a soul left, Joe. They don't. So now they're a zombie,
Yeah, I have members of my and they're wonderful people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about them, about their character or anything, but I cannot mention anything that has anything to do with the school system. I mean, it's, before I go over, my sister-in-law's house, my wife says, you will say nothing. And I do. I go there and I say nothing, because no matter what I say, they say, why are you asking me that question? I mean, they're on guard, like I'm interrogating them. I'm always afraid to say, may I have a glass of water, because they misinterpret it. It's, to me, learning is wondering. It's questioning, it's analyzing, it's experimenting, it's debating, all these things. They're all absent in school. You just memorize this crap, repeat it, put it on a piece of paper. You forget it the second you complete writing it. If you walk out and ask the person, what did you write? They have no idea what they did, but they get an A, and they're on to bigger and better things. What a horrible way to go. We absolutely have destroyed our entire education system. I wish we would close down every single school.
Yeah, I agree. It's a monstrous system. And it's funny what she said. Come on over for dinner, Joe, but for God's sakes, don't say anything. Sit in the corner and shut up. I get those invitations too. No, I don't get invitations. My family pretty long. Nothing to do with me. So, but I'm sorry if it makes you uncomfortable, but, I hate to bring this up, but we are talking about the destruction of Western civilization, for Christ's sakes. We are talking about the end of everything good and wonderful that this country and has tried to achieve. So if that makes you uncomfortable, well, excuse me, all to hell, you know.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your latest book, The Way of the Warrior. What approach did you take in that book? I'm sorry I didn't have an opportunity to read it because I haven't received it yet, but I will.
Know, I just sent it to you this morning. It's okay, Joe, no problem. So The Way of the Warrior is got nothing to do with the conspiracy that we're talking about, okay? I don't mention, the education system. I do a little bit, talk about how governments throughout history have done everything in their power to emasculate men. And we see that today with the feminism and with the ridiculous programming and the TV shows and the commercials where men are always portrayed as goofy idiots, and there's always some really smart-ass little kid that knows better than daddy.
I agree. I hate those commercials. You see them all the time where the 8-year-old kid is so brilliant and the father is just a babbling idiot. I mean, it's surprising he'd be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. That you see it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, or the smug wife that, oh, well, I have to put up with this man I call a husband, but he's so stupid. I'm sick of that stuff because that's not what we are, Men are the people that have built this civilization and have fought the wars, and then everybody that has freedom and is sitting on their fat little comfortable butts having a little soda and looking at their iPod, owe everything to men because we built it, we made the place safe for you, we created this country, we invented freedom, and we fought and died for it, and now you're just like, well, you people are all idiots and we have to put up with you. Women did not invent freedom, women did not go to war to fight for this country, and neither did all the, liberal champagne socialists that are running around pointing a finger and acting, what do you call that, so not superior, holier than thou, like they have some sort of monopoly on morality for some reason because they don't want to talk about the education system, so they're better than you, Joe, so you better shut up. They don't want to hear it. It's backwards, it's upside down.
Well, it's not only male versus female versus child, or it's also the older you get, the wiser you get. I don't care who you are, you eventually have an aha, even if it's by the time you're 68 years old, you go, oh, now I got it, But it takes time, and it's been my experience. And I find, in fact, I was just talking about this right before we had the program. I find it incredibly frustrating because unfortunately I've been through a lot. All of it wasn't very pretty. I've been in businesses. I've failed in business. I've worked for multinational corporations. I've traveled around the world. You name it. I've done it. Some very good, some very bad. But at least I have some experience. At least I can look back, look at my failures, look at my successes, and I've made a success. The end result is that I eventually made a success of myself after going through all this punishment. And I didn't do it very smart. I tell you, I wish if I would have done it smart, I would have been way ahead I am today. But at least I have some experience, and it reminds me of when in the old tribes, when the elder is held in esteem because he's been a warrior, he's been a father, he's gained knowledge, he has a better understanding of the community as a whole. So when they have a question, they go to the elder. Today we don't go to the elder. You know what? I am a worthless person that's hanging around. Everyone's waiting for me to die so they can get part of my estate, and that's about the only thing. I mean, other than that, I am absolutely worthless, and I really feel that way. And I know it sounds very harsh, but I actually feel that way. It really bothers me because no one would ever ask my opinion. You know why? Because they have, their child knows better, and the child can get the information on the internet, and It bothers me that we have the entire breakup of society. The very fabric of society is dead. I mean, I would never question my grandfather, who's been through, you can imagine he was born back in the turn of the 1900s. Can you imagine the hell that he went through to survive, and to become what he became? My father came here from Italy with not knowing the language, no money at all, got off the boat, was starving, and eventually started his own business, and eventually had a factory with 200 people working there. I mean, can you imagine that? I could never do that in a million years. And yet, But today that's nothing. It seems that we discount all of that, and the whole fabric of the family, which is the basic, I guess, the embryonic stage of society, is destroyed here in America.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the rant, by the way. I go nuts on this subject, but go ahead.
No, but you're absolutely right. The old people are discarded. I just came back yesterday from dropping my mother off. She finally got her into a nursing home. And a nursing home is a warehouse where they wait for people to drop dead,
Right.
And what I saw in that nursing home, it was a beautiful facility. It was wonderful. I'm glad she's there. She's not going to suffer, but I feel the same way, Joe. Look, I'm a straight white man, born and raised in this country, and I've turned 60, and I am the lowest of the low. Nobody gives a rat's ass about what I have to say or what I've done in my life or what I've accomplished. Nobody cares because, you know what? Kardashians are on TV now.
That's
so, let's go look at her amazingly big butt. Oh my God, let's everybody gather around and look at this big butt. But it's part of the programming, and the reason it's part of the programming is because wisdom is a threat to the state. They don't want old guys that have built businesses from the ground up, starting off with $2 in their pocket, working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and fighting and doing and working their asses off to build something and then share it with their community and their families and to create. They don't want that. That's a threat to the state because the state wants you to be a mindless automaton and obey every little order that they come out with, so that's why they're after us, Joe. It's part of the program. And we are public enemy number one. Old white guys that have had some experience and that still remember way back when, we still have this little memory of what freedom looked like. They don't want us telling other people that at one time we were free. We could do things,
Yeah.
So we are public enemy number one, Joe. That's it. Consider yourself honored that people reject you and ostracize you. That's an honor because this society is not the kind of society I would want to be accepted in anyways.
Yeah. People who are in their, let's say, the 50s, middle age, when they speak of their parents, they say, my parents sacrificed so I can get a degree, become a lawyer. They always give credit to their parents. Their parents did this. They sacrificed so I can go to school and get education because my parents didn't have that opportunity. Today, people, many young people graduate college with degrees in stupidity, sociology and stuff like that, get master's degrees, and they know everything. Parents are dumb. Don't listen to them. Please don't ask them a question. They become of no value at all. And I see this in my own family. I see this around me, and it sickens me.
Yeah. Well, let me talk about why I wrote the book then.
Yes,
because
please.
We are at war, Joe. You know that. Your listeners know that. We are under full-scale attack. And it's not a metaphor. This is not a metaphor, folks. It's not like I say, we're under a war from, mind control and programming and all the poison in the air, food and water, and all the mindless nonsense being pumped out through the media. We are suffering massive casualties. Look at the suicide rate in this country. Look at the alcoholism rate. Look at the deaths from cancers, in the tens of millions. These people are all dying and killing themselves, not because we live in this wonderful socialist society. They're dying because we live in this socialist society that has no value for humanity, human life, human creativity, kindness, generosity, love, families, bonds, history, culture. No, the state, I call it the state, whatever you want to call it, Illuminati, New World Order. For me, it's the state because that's the major instrument. That's the big sledgehammer that they're using to beat us in the head with. The state doesn't want that. So But the point is, there's better people than me to point out all these things. There's, researchers that have written dozens of books on the insanity of our public school system. There's researchers that have written dozens of books on chemtrails and fluoride in the water and the GMO and the sugar and so they have all done a much better job than I could ever possibly do pointing out all the evils in the world. So for me, I've always been like a martial arts instructor. Before that, I was a wilderness survival instructor, and I was also a first aid and CPR instructor. And so I'm always trying to teach people skills that will improve their life, that skills that will help them to survive. So I'm thinking, what can I do? We are at war, right? So here's the thing, all of us are in the foxholes right now. We're in the trenches, okay? Everybody thinks, oh, well, when things get bad. No, things are bad now. People are dying around you every day. I have friends committing suicide. The ones that aren't committing suicide are battling cancer. The ones that aren't battling cancer are alcoholics. The ones that aren't battling suicide, cancer, and alcoholics, they're battling, psychedelic or psychotropic, drug prescriptions. We are at war, but here's the thing: we weren't given any training. No one knows how to fight this war, right? So Sun Tzu, the famous Chinese strategist, wrote in his book The Art of War. He says, yes, you do not throw men into battle that are untrained, because you will just send them to their slaughter. And that's what we're doing now. We are being slaughtered. We have no training. There's no way for us to fight this system. Nobody knows what to do, how to fight the system. And so I wanted to start, I said, okay, now I'm trying to develop ideas, counter-revolutionary, sabotage, boycotts. Forget about protests and voting. They laugh at that nonsense, right? All the rich elites are sitting there drinking champagne, pissing themselves as they laugh at all these idiots marching in the streets like that's going to do something. It's not going to do anything. You got to hit them in their pocketbook. You got to hit them where they live, in their destroy their propaganda, destroy their infrastructure, their income. We can't do it. I can't get, 5 guys to sit together for coffee and say, listen, can we, form a small buying group? We'll save money. We'll pool our resources, and we can cut out the big middlemen. We can, pay less taxes. Things that we need to do. Don't pay taxes or pay as little as you can legally get away with,
Right.
And don't feed the big corporations. I don't never shop at Walmart, and I never drink a coffee at goddamn Starbucks, I go to the mom and pop coffee store, okay? We got one around the corner here, run by a nice Greek family. I'd rather give them my money than give, headquarters there where to go. Anyways, this is what we need. But we have been emasculated, and especially the men, okay? And they've used women against us. Feminism is an attack, not on women, but on men, okay? They use the women against us because, well, men, if we come to blows, if I say, Joe, I don't like the way you look, you're going to say, yeah, what you going to do about it? We can face each other. We can, bump our chests together and, shake our fists. But if it's a woman, we cave. We're not going to stand up to them. We're not going to, threaten or be violent to a woman. So they use the women and the feminism movements to emasculate us, okay?
I see.
And that's part of the problem, because this is what totalitarian tyrannies have always tried to do. They did it in Japan. They did it in China. As soon as the emperor got into power, first thing they did was close down all the kung fu schools. Oh, and then they rounded up all the swords, And then it became illegal to study military strategy. It actually became illegal in ancient China. This is going back 2,500 years. The emperor said nobody can read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Because why? Well, people might get ideas how to get rid of this tyrant, right? So this is an old tactic, and that tactic is to make us stupid and fearful and afraid and timid and, bootlickers and yes men and order takers. Well, this is the fundamental problem. This is until we can solve this, we can't fight back against the system. We can't organize our own communities. We can't boycott and withdraw our participation in this corrupt society, because everybody's too fearful and they don't have the tools. So the way of the warrior is a very in-depth book. I cover everything: sensory enhancement, leadership tactics, sparring techniques, fighting techniques, self-defense techniques, but also how to become a warrior. A warrior is somebody, and I'm using the archetype that was presented by Confucius. And Confucius had said he was in the same position as we are. He's facing this corrupt, empire in China. How can we fix it? And he said, we got to fix it when everybody takes personal responsibility for their little part of the world. And you do that through the study of art and culture and history and learning and music and martial arts. Now, he included martial arts because in order to become what he called, if you fulfilled all the requirements that Confucius laid out, he would say, you are a gentleman. But to be a gentleman is really hard. You have the entire world against you, Joe. You know that. Dare to speak the truth,
right.
And the world will turn on you. So you got to be tough. And so that's why Confucius said you also need to study martial arts, because martial arts will give you the courage and the self-confidence. Young people don't have self-confidence. They go through this educational system where they're never challenged and everybody gets a participation medal. There's no winners and there's no losers because we're all equal. What does that do? Does that give you confidence when everybody just says, oh yeah, Joe, you're just so wonderful for being you? No, you get confidence by accomplishing things,
right.
By working and overcoming your fears and overcoming your laziness and you going out and doing and building and being positive. And then when you succeed, you have confidence because it's real. I did it. I'm not just sitting on my fat butt and having everybody blow smoke up my butt. And now I'm confident. No, because these guys know it. They know there's nothing inside. That's why they get all angry when you question them, because they know deep down inside they're weak and they're afraid. And so we got to overcome that. That's why I say, we reawaken the warrior spirit, and we do that by, men have to take a bigger role in the lives of younger men and mentor them and teach them real skills and give them opportunities where they can test themselves.
Right.
And when they've tested themselves and overcome their own inertia and fear and laziness and succeed at something, anything, succeed at learning how to portage a canoe, succeed at learning how to build a fire, succeed at learning how to, fix the broken tire on your bicycle. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to conquer the world. We just have to conquer little things. But those little things will add up and will increase the confidence. And once you have that confidence and you're brave, then you can look at these issues and say, wait a minute, this society is rotten to the core. And now I'm going to take responsibility in my life to do something about it, instead of being a little lick-spittle bootlicker and just take everything that's thrown at me and never once complain about it.
Yeah. At one time, the book, The Art of War, of which I read an abbreviated version of it, which I found fascinating, this has got to be 40 years ago that I read it, but it was required reading at all military academies, and I don't know if it still is. And I often thought, well, if this was required reading in all military academies, how could anyone who joins the military or becomes part of the military, participate in all of these phony wars that we can't win? I mean, doesn't anyone hold up the book and say, hey, Captain or General or whomever, page 36, I mean, it seems that everything we do is contrary. Everything we do in the military, at least, and as well as in society, is contrary to that, to the principles of the art of war. I remember one, it says, you don't enter a war unless you can win immediately. Protracted wars are off the table, and they all study this, but yet we all march to the same tune of going through wars. Afghanistan now is 16 years old or whatever, 20 years old. I mean, it's insanity, and no one questions it. No one questions anything, and if you do, by the way, you're un-American.
Yeah. No, my first book is 36 Strategies of Ancient China, and apparently it's supposed to be studied at Annapolis Naval Academy. And but you're absolutely right, because Sun Tzu point of view was that war is a sometimes necessary evil, but any kind of prolonged war will destroy the state, and everyone will suffer. Right. So, and then he also said that before you go into war, you have to have the moral side. You have to have morality on your side, right? And we don't.
That's right. Yeah, we don't. We don't
have morality on our side. And so how can you possibly wage wars against Afghanistan or what was it before that, in North Korea, then Vietnam, and then the Philippines, and then Cuba, and then the Spanish, and then, for crying out loud, this has been going on for more than 30 years now, and they've all been immoral wars. America has never in its history ever been in danger of foreign invasion. Let's get that right. Straight right now.
People don't realize that World War II was immoral from the U.S. point of view, as well.
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. First of all, none of our business to be in Europe fighting wars, and if we didn't get in there and go back to World War I, that was the worst. That's the one that woke me up. I was researching the 36 strategies, and I was looking for battlefield examples of how these strategies were put into effect. And when I read about World War I, oh my God, what a horror story! Completely unnecessary. It was instigated by the bankers. It was prolonged by the bankers. The Germans didn't want it. The French didn't want it. The Dutch didn't want it. And the British didn't want it. And everybody was ready to give up and go home, and then America comes in, and so America has to slaughter 200,000 of their own farm boys. Just ridiculous. So
but a few million people got killed. Who's counting? We treat this as if it's a board game. One of my favorite books was Day of Deceit. The attack on Pearl Harbor, and it was a documentary. It has nothing but government documents which prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that, boy, that thing was all contrived. We knew all about it, and it says so. The government documents, it has a stamp on there from the Secret Service and all this other stuff. Through the what do you call what do I call that? Where you can get the archives where we can get the information from the government.
Freedom of Information.
Freedom of. Okay. Thank you very much. Freedom of Information Act. Thank you. My God, my brain got stuck. And as it comes, and as more information becomes available, because as time goes on, they get a little bit more lax. He updates the book, and I never forget the last two words of that book. Last two words were "We knew." We knew we were going to attack, and it lays it out, and it proves it beyond a shadow of a doubt. But no one wants to know that. Now, I have to ask you this before we sign off. What do you think of Trump and what he's doing? I thought when he got in there, he would at least shake things up and do things that would maybe level the playing field just slightly, here and there. Although I didn't have that much hope, I thought maybe something would happen that's different. And it seems that he got into office, at least he's doing the same thing everyone else is doing. What is your opinion?
Well, I'm so jaded against the political system. I hold out no hope whatsoever for any political party or candidate to make any bit of difference. For me, it's if they could make a bit of a difference, they would never get anywhere near the presidency, And if they do get anywhere near the presidency, it's because they've already been vetted. They've already got the dirt on them. There's the dirty videotapes of them doing dirty deeds locked away in some storage vault somewhere that they'll pull out in case this guy ever gets it into his head to do something on his own without taking the orders from the people that really run things. So I never had any hope for him. No, yeah. I mean, almost, the way the liberal media went after him. But, that's... that's another tactic too. If you want to add legitimacy to somebody, have them attacked by the people that are your enemies, right? So, Joe, in the 36 strategies, it's called the tactic of injuring yourself, right? So let's say, Joe, that you're having a feud with the Greeks down the street, right? And I come up to you and I say, Joe, those Greeks, they hate me. They're always attacking me. They're throwing stones at my house. Those goddamn Greeks, Joe, I can't believe it. Look at how they're attacking me. Now, you're going to think I'm on your side, right? Because the Greeks are your enemy. The Greeks are my enemy. And therefore, I look good because the Greeks are attacking me. But it's called the tactic of injuring yourself. You pretend that you have been attacked by your enemy,
Yes.
so that you will now trust me.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with the, I don't know, I don't want to use left and right or anything like that. I want to use people that are smart and awake and confident against the zombies, okay? It's not left and right. It's, the people that still have their brains intact against the mindless herds of zombies. So they're attacking Trump, and I almost, I'm almost sometimes catch my thinking, well, maybe, they're so, far out to get him. But no, I know the truth. That what they're going to do is, and this is my personal theory, and then you can make of it what you will. They put him in power so that they can collapse the system, and then him and anybody that's anywhere, right of Mao Zedong is going to be blamed for the disaster that follows. I think that's what's going to happen. I think he's just a stalking horse. They'll use him to draw the attention. Because it's strategy, right? Like, if I want to attack you on the right, then I'm going to first do something sneaky on the left, and then you're going to go, what? Something's on the left. Let's focus on that, and then I hit you in the right. And so I think that's what they're doing with this Trump thing. They're going like, oh, look, the right is, they're doing this and that. But meanwhile, the real punch is coming. It's going to knock us all on our ass. And then we're all going to say, oh, it was that Trump after all. I don't buy any of it, Joe. I'm too old and too jaded.
Well, it's interesting. Every once in a while, I'll listen to certain programs on RTV, Russia Television America. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is libertarians, and I'm a libertarian at heart, and, who believe in total freedom, RTV tolerates libertarianism. Now, this is Russia Television. And it tolerates and yet we say, oh no, Russia, is this communist and all this other stuff, and we're a free people. But you can't get a libertarian spokesman on mainstream television. You have to go to Russian television to hear the libertarian angle, and it just drives me nuts. And I said, but no one sees this. Here it is. It's right in front of you every day. Anyway, well,
I gotta ask a question.
We have a question.
Sorry.
Here we go.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I have to ask: is your 36 teachings of ancient China related to the 7 military classics of ancient China? Because I just finished reading that book a couple months ago by Ralph D. Sawyer.
Yeah, it's similar. It's in the same vein of ancient Chinese military philosophy. The 36 strategies is what it is a collection of like proverbs, right?
Okay.
Lure the tiger down the mountain. If you want something, let it go. And these were like just one sentence proverbs that implied, kind of like its own innate strategy. My favorite strategy is the strategy of beautiful women. If you really want to screw somebody over, send him a really good-looking woman. So that his mind is bamboozled. Like if I wanted to get at Joe,
that's the way I want to go.
And while he's all bamboozled by Pamela Anderson, I can sneak into his house and rob him blind, right? Well, yes, 7 military classics. They're written by different authors. The 36 strategies, no one knows who wrote it. Probably no one person ever did. It kind of arose out of a common understanding of all these different tactics.
Okay. Well, the next election, I'm going to write in Pamela Anderson's name, okay? Remind me to do that. Sure. Well, Stefan, I want to thank you so much. We're approaching the witching hour at this point. I want to thank you so much for being on our program. It's been an excellent conversation. I do hope that you will accept that invitation to return at a later date. And let me give you the last 30 seconds or so to wrap things up.
Well, folks, this is no fooling around now. We are really at the end of the Western civilization. If we don't, unite and train ourselves, personal discipline, personal training, get into shape, cut off the media, don't read, write, or watch anything, other than read some good books and some good podcasts. But you need to train yourself, get ready, because when it comes down, it's going to be really ugly. And I don't want to scare people. It's not a doomsday prophecy or anything. But when you read history and you understand historical cycles, and we've been lucky for a long time, right. Nobody's hunting us down and murdering us in the streets right now, which is usually what happens in the world, and it's usually what happens when civilizations collapse. There is a lot of horror and violence. So we got to fight it now. We can maybe still turn it around before it gets into a shooting war, into widespread bloodshed. But either way, you got to discipline yourself, get strong, and by all means, and I tell this to everybody, get out into nature as much as you can.
Right.
Go for walks, go to the woods, go camping, go hiking, ride a bicycle, go canoeing. I love my canoe. And because nature feeds you, nature will make you healthy and whole and will calm your mind down. It's like a mental flush, and it will make you strong so that you can resist what's coming.
Okay. Excellent advice. Thank you so much. I hope we will be speaking again.
Okay, thanks again, Joe, for having me on. Really good talking to you, you handsome old bastard.
Thank you. Folks, this is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends, and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, we'd like you to subscribe to our reminder service by going to our website, libertytalkradio.com, and clicking on the subscribe icon. Your name will remain confidential with us. Also, like us on Facebook and download our app so that you can listen to our podcast on your smartphone. All right? Your smartphone is probably less smarter than I am, so just look at it once in a while. Okay? And listen to our program and go to our archives. We have we have hundreds of programs. I think you'll find them all interesting. Until next time, this is Joe Cristiano. You've been listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well, stay tuned.